Hi, my name's Matthew Sparks. Back in the Quest for Treasure days, I was known as Malted Falcon. Today, I would like to start explaining why I'm pretty sure we found the actual location of the San Francisco casque. Before I get to the verse theory, though, I would like to tell you about something I noticed. So this video is called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to San Francisco. Let me share my screen. Okay. And ready to go. So this all started a while ago when John Michael said he had heard from someone who would know that we are all missing something in the images, something nobody has mentioned before across all the images. My first thought was, well, sure, that method that associates the image to the verse. Nobody has explained that. But John did not think it was that. So back to basics. I started with Chicago. And this is something I noticed a long time ago for Chicago. If you take things on the image and plot them on the map, like the Chicago Water Tower or the Bowman statue, or how about a steer head in a circle? So that equals Bulls Arena. And then the ferry, of course, is off the fountain of the Great Lakes. And I don't know about you, but as a kid, I did enjoy me a nice session of connect the dots. And after several tries, I got this. Now, you might say, so what? Well, let's zoom on that intersection right there. So there's the fountain of the Great Lakes. There's the intersection. See that dark building right there, just a couple steps away from the intersection of those two lines? Well, that's where M and B are set in stone. So what does this mean? Probably nothing, just a coincidence. Of course, Sherlock Holmes said this: a coincidence? The universe is rarely so lazy. I suspect neither was Byron Price. So then moving along in secret history, we come to Cleveland. Okay. So now, of the found casts, Cleveland is really well documented what's what. So we know the Cleveland Transit Building is here. We also know the Triangle Apartments are here, but admittedly, that's not a popular identification. But I like it. It's my theory, so there you go. The horsetail is kind of funny because there are two possibilities. Both are roadways. There's the bottom one along East Drive, of course, but it's mostly gone now because they built the hospital right there. And then there's the top one, just north of where the casque was actually found. Then there are these two items, which we know, in fact, represent fountains in the Italian gardens, okay, just north of the casque site. I'm also putting this on there. John Michaels was quite attached to this. He thought that this hand represents a statue in the Romanian gardens right there. And let's not forget Liberty Boulevard. Okay. Now it's MLK Boulevard. Then more connect the dots. That's just awful. I did not feel good about this. So after thinking about it, I thought, let's eliminate the outlier over here, which is the transit building. And we get this. Now, let's zoom in on the middle of where the lines cross and intersect. The center of the Cleveland Cultural Gardens. Might be a good place to start looking for a verse. or the columns. What do you know? It worked. Well, remember what Scotty used to say. On Earth, we have a saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But it's still just another coincidence, right? So now, I was working on this idea long before Boston was found. So let's start with the most common idea about the Boston image, the box she's holding. And people tell me, because I don't really know Boston, it represents Copley Square near the Boston Library. Okay. The next most common theory dealt with home plate, and the home base represents Fenway Park. After that, it all just went to hell. Okay. This thing down here, everybody thought it represents a cement bench near the Mother's Rest Park, which I think might have been removed lately. I'm not sure. John Michaels liked that a lot. I did not. I also had another favorite he did not like. This thing up here. It looks like a feather to me. In the north of Boston, there was a place called the Feather Store. They did not sell feathers. It was a famous historical Boston location. They sold supplies for the shipping industry, and it was historical, and it was right there in the north end of Boston. Now, I did not like the cement bench, and hey, it's my theory, so I threw it out. Now, when I see that shape right there, I see a globe. And the Boston Globe had a very famous location right there. It has moved since, but it was there in the 80s. The trouble is connecting the dots on any of these gets you garbage. Okay, the best we could come up with was along the Charles River. One layout of the line looked like an arrow pointing north across the river. So my pet theory was it was across the river at Harvard Yard. Anyway, all the theories were wrong until one day in a softball field in the north end of Boston, they found it. And then there was the EU episode. And JJP says this thing. He says, oh, yeah, this thing down here, that's the Boston Pops. Well, they say hindsight is 20/20 vision. So at this point, this basically just jumped out at me. Those lines intersect just southeast of the cast site, and they line up exactly. Those lines are right on the spots. As a matter of fact, if you zoom in, they cross basically right on top of the Paul Revere statue. Okay, what's that mean? Well, it could be another coincidence, of course. But let's check in with the noted mystery author Agatha Christie, who said, one coincidence is just a coincidence. Two coincidences are a clue. Three coincidences are a proof. So 3 times. Chicago, Cleveland, Boston. Anyway, that brings up San Francisco. And the most obvious thing about this image is, of course, Golden Gate Park. And then there's Lincoln. And another one on there that most people agree on is Angel Island. It's off the map up a bit, so I'll just put it there. Let's not forget the backwards GH for Ghirardelli. Okay, everybody likes this for the cable car turnaround. And now we absolutely know for a fact there is a Fairmont clue. Another game of connect the dots. Again, too many dots. So like Cleveland, let's drop the outliers. Also, you know, if this interpretation here is accurate, then cable cars and tracks and turnabouts are important. So let's follow those for our lines. So from Lincoln Park down California, and then from Powell turnaround to the GH or even the Hyde Street turnaround. You get this. Okay, let's zoom in on that intersection. Well, that's interesting. So John Michaels and I have looked all over this area and we found a few maybes, but nothing to write home about. Anyway, that's where it sat for a couple of years until one day in August of 2021, George Ward called me and said, "Hey, can you get over to the Fairmont?" Be continued in part 2.